There's a scene where a psychiatrist tells Carmela Soprano, in plain language, exactly what her marriage is. Not what it feels like, what it is. He tells her to take her children and leave. He tells her that every comfort she's built her life around is blood money. And then he does something almost nobody else in this entire show ever does for her. He refuses to take her money for the session, because he won't be paid with it either. Carmela hears all of this, understands all of this, and then goes home. The fandom loves to argue about whether Carmela is a victim of Tony's world or complicit in it, like those are the only two options. But watching her across 7 seasons, that framing gives her too little credit and too much sympathy at the same time. Carmela isn't a woman trapped by circumstances she didn't choose. She's a woman who understood the deal from the beginning, priced in the guilt as the cost of doing business, and then got extremely good at converting that guilt into leverage. Her Catholicism isn't a source of restraint on her. It's closer to a tool, a way of periodically discharging just enough moral anguish that she can keep living inside the arrangement without it corroding her sense of herself. Watch the pattern across the early seasons. Tony does something unforgivable. Carmela recoils, genuinely, visibly. And then Tony buys her something. Jewelry, a fur, a car, and the recoil resolves into gratitude. This isn't naivety repeating itself. It's a transaction Carmela has learned to run, whether she'd ever describe it that way to herself or not. Which brings us to Second Opinion, Season 3. This is the episode where the show removes Carmela's last real excuse. She shows up to one of Tony's sessions when he doesn't want to go, and ends up talking instead. Melfi, maybe sensing this isn't really about Tony's treatment anymore, refers her to a colleague, Dr. Krakower, and Krakower does not do therapy the way Melfi does. There's no careful unpacking, no professional neutrality. Carmela tells him Tony is a good man, a good father. Krakower doesn't let that stand for a second. He calls Tony a depressed criminal, prone to anger, serially unfaithful, and asks her if that's really her definition of good. When Carmela tries to defend herself, insists she's not an accomplice, that all she does is keep the house running and dinner on the table, Krakower corrects the word choice, not accomplice, enabler, and then he tells her plainly, take the children, what's left of them, and go. Here's the detail that matters most, and it's easy to miss if you're only half paying attention to the dialogue. Krakower won't charge her for the session. He tells her directly, he won't take blood money, and neither should she. It's the cleanest, least ambiguous moral instruction anyone gives Carmela in the entire series. No mixed signals, no room to reinterpret it later as something else. So this is the moment the cognitive dissonance should collapse. She's been told, by a professional with nothing to gain, exactly what she is and exactly what to do about it. She goes home anyway. This is where the show gets more interesting than a simple morality tale, and where the fandom's victim/villain debate usually stalls out. Carmela doesn't rebuild her denial right away. For a while, she's genuinely shaken. But the marriage doesn't end in Season 3. It takes something specific to actually break it. Not the affairs Carmela already knew about and had learned to tolerate, but a call from Tony's ex-mistress Irina near the end of Season 4, revealing that Tony had also slept with Svetlana. Svetlana isn't just another name. She's the nurse who'd been caring for Tony's own mother, Livia. That detail is what Carmela can't absorb the way she's absorbed everything else. Carmela separates from Tony. She dates AJ's guidance counselor. She pursues divorce, or at least the appearance of pursuing it. And this is the stretch of the show most sympathetic to a genuine Carmela as a person trying to leave. Because for a little while, she actually is trying. But watch what she asks for when she starts negotiating her way back. In long-term parking, partway through Season 5, Carmela and Tony are talking tentatively about what it would take to get back together. And Carmela doesn't ask for an apology or counseling or a change in his behavior. She brings up land, a lot on Crestview, a little over an acre, $600,000. She wants to build a spec house, with her father overseeing construction, and she wants Tony to front the down payment. Tony agrees almost immediately, and by the time the season ends, that property is effectively the terms of the marriage's renewal, not stated outright as a condition, but functioning as exactly that. 3 seasons after a therapist told her, explicitly, not to touch another dollar of this man's money, Carmela negotiates the largest personal investment of her life directly out of the guilt of his affairs. This is the extraction the Krakower scene was building toward, even if it took years to arrive. Not blackmail in the cartoonish sense. Nobody's threatening anybody. It's subtler and, honestly, more damning than that. Carmela has learned that Tony's guilt is a resource, and she knows exactly when it's at its most spendable. And the spec house doesn't even stay clean as a symbol. Once construction starts, in the Season 6 premiere, an inspector halts the project. The materials being used aren't up to code. Carmela's father can't get his old contact to make it go away. So eventually, it's implied Tony's world does what Tony's world does to problems like this. The obstruction gets handled, and construction continues. The house Carmela builds specifically to prove she can generate her own money, independent of Tony, still ends up running on the same infrastructure of leaned-on inspectors and quietly applied pressure as everything else in her life. She sells it later that season for roughly $600,000 in profit, to her own cousin, notably, who ends up living in a house built on substandard lumber that never should have passed inspection in the first place. Even her one real bid at independence turns out to be downstream of the same corruption she was told, years earlier, to walk away from entirely. So go back to the framing the fandom keeps arguing about: victim or complicit. Neither word quite fits, because both assume Carmela's participation is passive. It isn't. She was given the clearest possible articulation of her situation by someone with no stake in her marriage in season 3. She heard it. She understood it. And instead of leaving, she spent the next several years learning how to bill her husband for staying. That's not a woman who didn't know better. That's a woman who knew exactly what Dr. Krakower told her, filed it away, and figured out, eventually, expensively, how to make peace with blood money by getting some of it under her own name.